quarter, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Fall Obsession Podcast. I'm your host, Drew Twerdick. I'm here with Andy Meeks and Todd Sellen. We're here in Minnesota. We just had a pheasant hunt. Todd's in town visiting from Michigan. Came out to check out Minnesota, do a little bit of pheasant hunting here, and just kind of check out what we do up here. So
continue the Fall Obsession World Tour we're on here.
Exactly. Yep.
Texas in December, and Minnesota now, and Missouri in a couple weeks, and
Shoot, yeah, you'll have about 50 states done by next summer.
get out to Hawaii to get those access deer out there.
Yeah.
Invasive.
Yep. So, like I'd mentioned, Todd was in town. We did a little bit of pheasant hunting today. We were up at the local game farm. The wild bird season is closed for the year, so had a chance to get out and do a little bit of hunting. Ran both of the dogs. Andy's got a young puppy that it was her first time out pheasant hunting.
Yep, so that was nice to see, and she did as well as I expected, and yeah, so I wasn't trying to push it too hard, so I just wanted her to kind of watch the other dogs and learn some stuff. So
Yeah, that was good. So Todd, what did you think of your first time?
So this is funny because Andy and I were having this conversation last night. He asked me if I've always been a bird hunter, and I said, no, I haven't always been a bird hunter. My bird hunting actually started, I've always wanted to go turkey hunting because that's what's most popular in Michigan. And with quarantine, with COVID a couple years ago, I'm so busy in the springtime with baseball that because baseball was shut down during that time, I was able to go out turkey hunting for the first time. And I was able to actually harvest my first turkey. And from that point, Heather, moving forward a little bit, Heather got me a pheasant hunt for my birthday, and that kind of sparked us into let's get a dog, let's start exploring bird hunting a little bit more. Before that, we're exclusively deer hunting, and then I did antelope hunting, I did bear hunting, and I did some of the others, but not as much as deer hunting, obviously. And so my first real trip out of state was the snow goose hunt last year. And that, I think, really, I really got the bug for bird hunting at that time.
Yep.
Just because of, the things that we had talked about, the adrenaline rush that you get over and over and over and over again. And, from there was a crane hunt. And so today, like this is my first time in Minnesota for sure, pheasant hunting. And, I just love it. I love being out here with you guys. I love being active. I love getting outside when it's sunny, and just getting some exercise during this time of year when we're kind of on a down season or downtime, and just staying active in the outdoors. So.
Yeah, so as Todd mentioned, it was pretty nice today. Here in Minnesota, we've had kind of a mixed winter where it's been either really cold, snowing heavily.
or 40.
Yeah, or 40. And today happened to be one of those days where it was nice and warm, I think mid-30s, and the sun was out. A little bit of a breeze, but nothing bad.
Not bad.
And then next week, they're talking we're supposed to get over a foot of snow again.
Foot of snow and drop down to single digits, so it'd be nice and fun. So can't wait.
Yep. So, Todd, you mentioned the snow goose hunt. And for our listeners, I guess by the time this podcast airs, it'll actually be the week that we're out on our hunt out there in Michigan, right? Or no?
No, it's in Missouri.
Missouri, that's right. Yeah, Mound City.
Mound City, Missouri with Squaw Creek Outfitters, Squaw Creek Hunt Club, actually. We went last year. We had no expectations last year. We went in. Actually, it was the second time I met Andy. I had met him prior to that at Tim Burgess at his pheasant hunt. It's the first time we met Tyler. First time we met Delaney, and that's where we really developed our connection. We met each other. Like I said, Andy and I had met each other, but Tyler and Delaney, we talked via social media, via text, via email. But we never met each other in person, and that's where that started. And so we get to relive that again. We had no expectation last year and ended up with a lot of fun, a lot of camaraderie, and a lot of birds, and so it exceeded all expectations. So we were able to put together again. This year we have Michael TP coming with us as well, and we're trying to get Drew out there with us. So
we're dragging him with.
We're dragging him with.
Trying to make it happen. Yeah, and what we're hunting out of pit blinds, right?
Pit blinds, yep. So last year we hunted one day out of a pit blind. So if you guys don't know what a pit blind is, it's a big hole in the ground, really, and you gotta go down some stairs and you just sit on a bench, and you're about, I don't know, what, 5 foot in the ground.
I'd say close to that, yeah.
Yeah,
About that.
about
4
5
foot,
feet.
4 foot, yeah.
And we have a couple thousand decoys around us. We have collars going on, and so the goose sound rings in your head for months afterwards.
You hear it in your sleep.
You hear it in your sleep, yeah. Plenty of room in the pit blind, and as they come in, as they volley in, you jump up. We usually have a caller. Andy was our caller last year. Pop up and you take a shot at them. The other blind that we were in was an A-frame blind, which was set up right on the edge of a pond,
which was really awesome.
And again, it was just a bench with a couple pieces of plywood that created a type of, and then they brushed it in with different types of grass and camo and stuff like that.
Yep.
So was the pit on water too, or was that just in a field?
So the pit was in a cornfield that they flood for duck season. So when we went out there, it was pretty muddy.
It was muddy, but it's springtime. Things were thawing out.
Yeah.
So they were, it was greasy. You know how those
Typical snow goose hunt.
typical snow goose hunt.
And
For sure.
So, but the second day in the A-frame, we were just, like I said, on dry land on the edge of a pond, and they would come into the pond, and we took a couple shots with them landing in the pond, I think, right?
Yep. And, based on the reports that you're hearing right now, kind of wherever you look or who you talk to, I've heard anywhere from 750,000 birds up to an estimated 2 million birds in that Mound City area. So
migration is definitely happening.
Oh, yeah.
They called me, Joe and Scott from Squaw Creek called me back in January just to confirm that we're set up to go out there in March. And one of the things I say, hey, what are you guys doing right now? They're like, oh, we're out setting spreads already in January. So they're setting their decoys up already and getting their blinds set up. So.
Well, when you have thousands and thousands of decoys, it's better to get started earlier than later.
For sure. That was one thing we had talked about because that was our concern last year. Remember you asked me, are we going to have to set the decoys up ourselves?
I'm like, oh my gosh.
And
done that.
Too many times.
So we got a hold of Joe. Joe, the guide, he's like, no, we do all that stuff for you. All you got to do is just show up. We'll take you out there and you're good to go. And so after we realized how many decoys were out there, like, oh my goodness. We would have had to get out here at like 1 o'clock in the morning to get everything set up in time. But.
Been there, done that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a guy, I even bought 200 more decoys this year, so I'm really screwed away. So.
Yeah. Yep. Now, last year when you guys hunted, what part of the migration were you guys in? Was it early on? Were you getting a lot of adults, or were you guys a little bit later in where you were getting some juvies mixed in, or?
I'd say we're probably probably halfway. So there was definitely geese north of us, and the front line was definitely past us. But we were dealing with adults, but we did see a bunch of juvies too. I think most of our bag was juvies.
Most of our bags were.
Yeah, and we were down there with that. When the first the flu came, the bird flu.
Bird flu.
Yeah.
So we were starting to see some birds do some weird things. Like flying in circles with their head down. It was kind of weird.
Yeah,
a little different. So
that's not typical, no.
After we shot at him 12 times, he still kept flying.
He kept on coming. So we're all excited. It's always a fun time. It's always it breaks the spring up,
Yep.
So
Yep. And so I guess for the listeners that might not have snow goose hunted or don't know what we're talking about, the juvenile birds are the ones that were born this year.
Yep.
Typically the adult birds have seen that trick before. They've seen decoy spreads up and down the migration both ways. So they get educated. But those first year birds, those are the ones that decoy really well, especially when the wind is up you've got low visibility from fog or early in the morning.
Yep. That's what makes this snow goose hunting so much fun, is those birds. They keep you coming back.
Yep.
So it's Andy and I had this conversation earlier today. We were talking about adults versus juvies, and last year we had quite a few juvies, and the message we got today were that the adults are in. So I asked Andy about, how is it different than juvies? He's like, they're much smarter. The adults are smarter. So Tala Piper, listening at home, mom and dad, we're the adults. We're smarter than you. So pay attention to what we say. But just like they said, they've seen the tricks. Just like any animal. You think about it, whitetail hunting, the older, more mature deer are the ones that you have that are the hardest to harvest because they know all the tricks. They know the patterns. They know when something's not quite right.
Yep.
So.
And to touch on what Drew said, some of these birds live to 15 to 16 years old, and 2 times a year going up and down the coast, they see everything.
I think they've even recorded some bands that are mid 20s.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So those birds have seen it, multiply it by 2, and then every state in between, and all the way up into Canada and even into Alaska.
Seriously, yeah.
Those birds have seen it a few times.
Yep.
So it's Well, let's go back to the reasons why we hunt the snow geese and why they have a conservation hunt. Remember we touched on that a little bit last year?
Yep. This is this bird flu that is upon us is kind of what scared me. That's why we do this to eliminate bring the population down a little bit, because if when Mother Nature gets a hold of them, it's going to wipe a lot more out than what we can do. That's why the conservation order is in place to help control these birds' population. We're not just out there to shoot them, but we're trying to help this keep the sport growing and keep it maintained. And with this bird flu like this, it could get ugly. I mean, if they could get any worse, it could take out thousands and hundreds of thousands. So
even last year they had piles of thousands out there. They were just from the bird flu.
And you hear it up and down the flyway. Everybody's seen sick birds and stuff like that, and especially when they go up in a breeding season when they're all close like that, and stuff can bugs can get everywhere,
And then on top of that, the ecosystem. There's so many that if you look at what they're doing to Canada's ecosystem up there, they're just destroying it.
Yeah.
And so, I had somebody recently ask me why I use a semi-automatic shotgun when I'm hunting geese, for example. And I don't want to get into politics or anything, because I know that's a hot topic right now, but simply because of this. If you think about it, if you get a pump, you may only get 2 shots off in a volley, which means you may only put 1 bird on the ground. Again, the more birds you put on the ground, the more it's going to help save our ecosystem. The more it's going to help them out, and not, just with the numbers, and not, get that bird flu. And so.
Yeah. So speaking of bird flu, I actually had the opportunity this past week to sit in on a call. Well, it was more of a call. It was like a webinar hosted by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources.
Oh, really?
Oh, cool.
With a few scientists on it. And it was really interesting to hear them talk about their studies that they've been doing. So they've been doing studies in all of the different flyways here in Minnesota, whether it was, the St. Croix River Valley, the Mississippi River Valley, even out west. I don't know if they technically call it the Red River Valley,
right.
but that's where it is, along that, Lac of Parle area.
Yep.
And hearing what they have to say on the bird flu is very interesting. According to those scientists, we're on the downward trend. We're towards the tail end of it. It doesn't mean it can't, rebound like it has in the past, but it was actually really interesting. They were seeing it a lot more in mallards than in any other species of duck, probably because we don't get the snow goose numbers here in Minnesota that they do, in South Dakota or Iowa or somewhere else where they're really going to be seeing those numbers.
So it jumped species. It went from snow goose to...
Yeah, it's in all of the waterfowl.
Really?
Yeah, and we're actually seeing it in our domestic turkey population as well, and even backyard chicken population.
Backyard chicken.
I heard the chickens. Yeah, the chickens were getting it too. Yeah.
They did a thing in the news back in Michigan this week. It was exactly that the bird flu originated. That's the story they're telling. Originated from farm chickens, and then it spread.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then it spread to other species. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, just interesting to hear. I know it's something we've been battling for over 2 years now for this round, but it's come and gone over the past decade several times, and just to hear that it's potentially on the downward swing and it's something that maybe is clearing up is good news.
Oh, very good news. Yeah, we don't want to see sick birds out there. Obviously we're hunters, but we're also conservationists too, and we like to see good, plentiful.
Which now puts that emphasis back on conservation piece in terms of we got to make sure we manage that herd with our hunting practices. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because if the bird flu goes away, what's going to happen to the population even now? It's going to explode even more than it already is. And what's going to happen to the ecosystem in Canada? And you know what I mean? They're overpopulated. And
100%.
that's why we have this conservation hunt. So
Yeah. And so, talking equipment then, we were somewhere today where they had magazine tube extensions for sale.
Yeah.
I know personally when I've hunted in the past, I've always ran, I don't even know if it's a +8 or +8, 13 rounds total. So it's, a magazine tube extension out to, and even potentially beyond the end of the barrel.
Yep.
And, filling it up with 3-inch shells, 3-inch steel, and
Letting them have it.
yeah, you get the flock in nice and close, hopefully let them land, and then, start shooting. And by the time they get out, it's amazing how many birds, if everybody in the blind has 13 shots, how many you can drop in a volley.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Think about it. There are times where you get hundreds of birds in a volley, and if you only have, let's say you have a plug in your gun, you get 3 shots. That's it. That's it. You know what I mean? And in my regular, I have a Stroger 3000, so I can put four in the chamber and 1 in the barrel, and so I get 5 shots. And even that, I'm not the greatest shot, but I'm hoping to get at least 2 birds out of that.
Right.
And so, the more shots you have, the better that you're helping the herd out. So.
Yep. Well, I run a +6. I can put 11 in mine. So, but you have to understand that when you put all that weight in there too, so you have to kind of train for this. So if you do put an extension on it, load it up at home. Raise it up like you're gonna shoot. Because when you get in the blind and you have all that weight in there, it throws your shot off. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and the other thing too is people put these mag tube extensions on and then don't think about the follower or follower.
Yeah,
that's there you go. Yeah, that's in the magazine tube extension, and with this big magazine tube extension on top of where your normal one is, you get a seam inside of that barrel or inside of that tube. And if you don't upgrade that, potentially, I've had it happen to me in the past where you shoot 5 shots off and all of a sudden your gun jams because it doesn't have the pressure to put the next round in.
Yep.
And so that's, it's an inexpensive part in compared to the magazine tube extension, but definitely something that if you're going to go with a mag tube extension, you should consider adding to your equipment.
100%. Agreed. Yes.
What was the drum thing that the guy was talking about today? I kind of caught bits and pieces of it, but in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this is like 1920s mafia stuff with the.
Well, yeah, no, he was like the Chicago typewriter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the Tommy gun. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Put the what is it? The cylinder on the bottom, right?
Oh, it's a version of a 12 gauge, similar to an AR style or like the wish I could remember the name of it right now, but it's got a magazine tube that's 4 tubes, and so it can come out of the bottom of the gun, and then when you run out, you can pull the entire 4 tube assembly out and replace it.
Really?
Yeah. So
how many rounds does that hold?
I think it's 5 times 4 plus the 1 in the chamber. So I think you're looking at 21, but I could be wrong on that.
I don't know.
And then the other option that I've seen people run, and it's really heavy on the forend, is the X-rail. And that's very similar. So you're running, all of your rounds are out by the end of your barrel.
Yeah.
And it's circular and it spins automatically. So as you're running out, it's automatically spinning and loading. And that one I think is up near 20 rounds as well.
Oh yeah, he has to be.
Yeah. And to watch somebody mag dump that is.
Oh, I can mean. Oh, imagine.
It's pretty interesting.
We saw it on YouTube. We saw that. So
yeah. I've never seen anybody hunt with one, but.
Yeah,
I would love to see somebody hunt with one at the same time.
100%. I just want to see if you can do it.
Yeah.
So going into this goose hunt, what are your expectations? Like I said, we had none last year. Now we have a little more experience. Obviously, I have a little more experience. You're pretty experienced. Drew's pretty experienced. What are your expectations this year?
Hunting snow geese, you can't have that high of expectations because they are such a worry bird. You never know what you could shoot 20 of them a day, or you could shoot 2 a day. You just don't know. So when you say expectations on this hunt, I like to go especially into snow goose hunting with the least amount of expectations. You know, just I want to have fun. We're out there to, you know, entertain ourselves and, and shoot geese, and that's what it is. And it is what it is at this. You know, so I'm not. I don't really have high. I don't want 100. I mean, if we shoot 100, that's great. I mean, it'd be awesome. But you know, just to get out there and enjoy your time and do what we love to do, hunt, you know, stuff like that. So
maybe not expectation. What are your goals? Obviously, you said come out and have fun.
Right,
so.
exactly. I mean, it kind of, you know, goes along the same thing as expectations. And my goals are just, you know, just carefree, you know, just like, you know, we'll go out there and we'll do what we got to do and see what we got to see, and whatever happens next, happens next. So, yeah.
You know, for me personally, I think it's watching the birds decoy, right? I've been on hunts where we've shot 142 in a day, 147, you know, upwards of almost 150 sometimes, you know, and those days are fun. But you and I were on a hunt one year where I think we shot 13 maybe. And that is one of the most memorable hunts I've ever been on.
Mine too, yes.
And it was because we had set up in this field, and the day before this field was loaded. Probably 2,000-3,000 birds in this field on a feed. And so we went through and set a ton of decoys, a bunch of full bodies, bunch of flags, a bunch of Texas rags. And in the morning they were gone. And we had one flock of juvies, but they were roosted literally on the other side of the highway behind some trees. And you could hear them get up, and you saw them clear the trees, and they cleared right at treetop level. And they didn't think twice about it. They were in that field. It was like, we just watched them come in on a rope. And I mean, snow geese, anybody who's hunted them will tell you, like, they're frustrating.
Very frustrating.
And this day, these birds, probably a flock of juvies, but
probably, yes.
They wanted it. And I don't know if any of them got out. I think we rained out the entire flock.
Yeah.
And
it was
awesome.
Amazing. It was beautiful. It was, we were sitting there all hooting and hollering after that. It was one of the best shoots I've ever had it was with Drew. Yeah, 100%. And I've been doing this for 8 years, and you've been doing it for just as long.
Yep.
So, I mean, we've seen lots of snow geese in the air.
Yeah. I think migration days are the worst, where you sit and you see them all day long, but they're up high and you'll never see them, and you see flock after flock after flock, and it's all day long and nothing will decoy.
Nothing.
And we had that a little bit last year.
Exactly.
A little bit. In the morning in particular. We had a couple come in, and a couple of people forgot to put bullets in their guns.
Uh-oh.
We got them in close.
Not naming any names, huh?
Todd, you want to shoot that? Yeah.
Click.
And the click. Yeah, I just still don't. I don't live that down. Heather lets me know as much as she can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh god, that was funny.
You know, that happens. That's that neck collar up there.
I know.
We were in a pit blind hunting up in Fergus, so northern mid Minnesota.
Okay.
And we were with a guide, and you know, somehow my buddy saw this collar in the air flying, and was like, "I swear, there's a neck collar in this flock of birds." And so, you know, they were decoying, and they landed, and kind of had the conversation. All right, who's gonna shoot it?
Right.
And you know, decided to let the guide, who has been on a ton of hunts and, you know, puts in the work and does all the scouting for everybody. All right, guide, because we're not going to name names.
Right.
Yeah.
You get to shoot this, right? So I'm on the far end of the blind.
I love this story.
And he pops up, and it was the loudest sound that was also a quiet sound that I've ever heard. And it was click. And I knew exactly what it was. And I didn't hesitate 1 second. As soon as I heard that click, I saw that bird, and I was like, I'm shooting it. Shot it and folded it. So that's the story of that. And that's why, you know, to this day, I'm a little bit OCD, and you'll see me in the blind, like just checking to make sure there's something, always checking the chamber, just making sure, you know, what kind of last thing that happens is the birds are decoying, making sure I'm ready to shoot.
Right. I almost did that today for everybody. I only had one shell in the gun, and I went to go pull it again and went, oh. Man.
easy to forget, especially if you got, like I said, a semi-auto or something quick. I would say single shot. So, when I go back, I had to borrow a friend's gun when I shot that turkey because I only had a single shot, and I thought I needed something a little bit, because I figured if I had a single shot, I'd shoot one. Turkey's gone. I'm not going to get a second shot. So I borrowed a buddy's gun that was a pump. It was a 12 gauge, I think, Remington pump, and ended up putting a turkey down with the first shot. So, but after that, that's when I bought my Stroger. And so, because I realized very quickly that, you have to have more than one shot. But we would go on preserves before, or right around that time too, and I'd have single shots. And so we'd go out and shoot chuckers and pheasants with a single shot, 20 gauge at that time. So, but my goals for this are, Heather had so much fun last year, and that was her first time hunting out of state. And I thoroughly enjoyed just seeing her, and I was so happy and so proud of how she did. And she is looking forward to this. I mean, this is what she's looked forward to since we left last year. And she keeps saying to me, I hope the weather holds off. I hope the weather holds off, because with our luck, the birds are going to migrate back down south, and we're going to have to cancel. And so my goals are just to get her back out there and get her on some birds, and hopefully the weather does hold off. Reports today sound like it's going to, but you never know. It's not, you can't report something that far out, or you can't predict it something that far out.
Yeah, especially the spring season. I mean, you never know when the storm. I mean, you can look in weeks out and see when the storm rolls through it. Mm-hmm. You never know what those birds are going to do. They could hold tight. They could push north and get above the storm, or push south, go back south and get below the storm. Yeah, you never know.
Never know.
And they can cover so much ground in one day. They can be,
it's
you could be
incredible.
loaded in snow geese one day, and that little weather change, it could be the smallest weather change, and the next day there's not a bird in sight.
For 10 miles, 15, 20 miles. I mean, even that, even further
more,
than that.
even. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's their main goal right now is to get north. The adults are. The juvies, obviously, they take their time because they're not breeding. And I think a snow goose breeds at 2, 3 or something like that. So, they have a couple of years that they're, just do it around, so.
Right. And then to see hang out with Michael. We've never hung out with Michael. Yeah,
exactly.
We haven't hung out with Michael in camp. So to get him out there, we've been with Drew before. So when we get Drew down there.
Oh, yeah.
And so Drew and Tyler are going to pretty much fill the field just between those two.
I'm hoping. We talked to Tyler in Texas, and he's excited for this too.
Very much so.
And, obviously we love bow hunting and deer hunting and stuff like that. That's kind of what we all got together for. But it's nice to have go shoot some birds here and there, like that. And like I said, break up the spring, because deer season's way too short.
Way too short. There's such a huge gap between the end of deer season and turkey season.
Right.
You got to find something.
Exactly.
Way too short. It's mid-September through the end of January, or beginning of January.
It's too short, Drew.
So you start hunting almost every day. But yes, too short.
Yeah.
Too short. No, yeah. It is, especially with the bow, like you said, it does, you can start hunting them in September with the bow, and then by the end of January, you're hunting with the muzzle loader. So, I mean, we do have quite a long season, but it gets cold up here.
Yeah. It does, and that's one thing that I really enjoyed this year was we finally have all those box blinds up at the farm. And
oh, yes.
not only do we have the box blinds, but, I started carrying my heater with me. So I sit out there with the buddy heater and a fan. And
I hear you, man. We're getting there.
And there was a couple of days where it was, 10, 20 below, or 10 to 15 below, I guess, during the season, I think is how cold it got. And
you were sitting there in a t-shirt?
I was sitting there in a sweatshirt, and warm as could be, and, a little bit of condensation on the windows.
That's okay.
But I started bringing a little battery-powered fan, and next thing you know, it's
So
just fine.
Swim trunks and.
So when we were on the way down to Texas, we stopped at Tyler Wolf's house.
Yep.
In KCK. And I got the opportunity to go out to his property and sit for an evening over on his property. And he has one of those redneck blinds. Boy, are those nice. I could not believe it. I'm just like, wow, this is kind of cheating.
Yeah. Yeah, I've looked at those. The other ones that I really like are the muddy tower blinds. I don't remember their exact name for them, but man, some of those nicer box blinds, even the guys that, make the feeders that we're sponsored by, they have got some blinds that they make that are pretty nice too. As long as you're getting into those insulated enclosed blinds that get out of the wind and be able to contain that heat, that's pretty nice.
And I just loved how everything was quiet. The windows were quiet. The door was quiet. And just like, wow, that's what it's all about, being quiet and stuff like that. So.
We've got a couple on our property that I showed you the picture of our original. So Heather and I were out there on Friday just walking around the property and looking at some of the things that we need to upgrade or repair. And my very first blind I built, we call the outhouse blind, because I had a bunch of just wood laying around. So we just I slapped it together and built, it looked like an outhouse with windows in it, or like a porta potty with windows in it. And so the funny thing is I built it up at our house, and then we had to get it to the back part of our property, and I didn't think about that while I was building it. So we had to end up borrowing a trailer, and we pulled it to the back part of the property with the farm tractor, and we just dumped it right where we could. And it wasn't exactly in the spot, but it actually ended up working out. But in looking from that point on till now, just with succession and everything, how much has grown up around, we're like, man, we gotta get out here and start working this. But beyond that, we built one that we call a Death Star, just because it's huge. It's a 6x8, and we can put a couch in there, TV, refrigerator. It's just huge. And we put a little more work and a little more detail into that, but it's been there for a few years now. We got to start replacing the roof, for example. Got a big old hole in the roof, and then the door has fallen off, so we got to replace the door. No. So we just gotta. So we were out there taking pictures and getting measurements, because we're gonna start working on those projects. But then I have a shadow hunter on our property, so. I went out and splurged and ended up buying a good one that I didn't have to put too much or any work into. Really, we just had to build the elevation stand and then get it up there. And so we do have the one that comfortable, and we're going to try to make the Death Star as comfortable. But in Michigan, honestly, all the days that we hunt from October until we're really, if you factor in early doe season, it's the end of September to January 1st, we don't get a ton of days where you feel like you have to be inside because of the cold.
Right.
If you're inside, you're trying to get out of the wind, or not even really the wind, but it's just the rain or the snow if it's snowing really hard, That's my big thing. I can sit out there in the wind. I can sit out there if it is cold. Not a big deal to me. But if I get wet,
right, that's game over for with anybody. I think anybody getting wet anywhere. So,
where I can see up here in Minnesota, it'd be totally different, because you guys are colder than us more often. So today, for example, it's 46. I said at home, and we don't have we had no snow on the ground whatsoever. It's been a weird winter. I was supposed to come up here around Christmas break. We had that blizzard. When it started melting, by the end of the week, we had no more snow. So we had over 20 inches of snow on the ground, all melted within a week. And then we went all of January with no snow. We didn't get a single.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I know. Oh.
All of January, no snow on the ground. We averaged above. So our lowest temperature throughout January was probably 33. It was above freezing. 33, 34 degrees, which at that time is the coldest part of the year. It should be below freezing, but we didn't have that this year. And then we had the snowstorm on Thursday, but it was more of an ice event. So we haven't had a really bad winter. And so that's been more common in Michigan in recent years.
Yeah. Like Drew said, our winter's been either freezing cold, or 40 degrees.
Yeah, it's been all over the place.
It's been a weird one.
Yeah. So one thing we haven't touched on today was not the first time that we've hunted with Mason, your son.
Yep.
But I would say one of the most fun times that we've hunted with Mason. He's finally of that age where you don't have to keep an eye on him. You can trust him in the field. Yep. He knows what he's doing. He's just another member of the hunt.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's great. That's how I wanted him to be. I raised him that way, I guess, like that. He got his hunter safety certificate, and he did all the proper, training and stuff like that. And obviously I harp on him too, a little bit, is that safety on? Is that safety on? I always make sure he has it always in the back of his head. So, but no, he's learning a lot, and he loves it. That's the main thing, is he wants to be out there with us. And
I mean, I remember some of the first hunts when he was coming with, and he's just carrying, not even a real gun, just a little BB gun. Hey, Dad, can I shoot it?
Yes, you can shoot it.
Go ahead.
No, he's actually he shot more ducks than I did last year.
Yeah.
He shot a pintail in Minnesota.
No way.
Yes, I can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. The kid.
Beginner's luck.
I know.
Mason, that'll never happen again.
Never. I told him, I've been hunting for 20 some years and I haven't shot a pintail in Minnesota. You've got 2 years under your belt and you've got,
Yeah. And then the other thing was you have a new dog.
Yeah. My new puppy.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Full of energy. Oh.
It was fun to watch her work, watch her follow Moose around.
Yep.
Right on his heels. Mm-hmm. Made some great retrieves.
Yes.
Yeah.
She even beat Moose to a couple of them.
I had to tell Moose, I said, Moose, she's a little bit faster than you.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, he's almost 8.
Oh,
so
okay. Is he that? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Todd, I know you've got a new dog.
Yeah, she's going to be 3 years old on Saturday, the 25th.
Yep.
So February 25th she was born, so she'll be 3.
Remy.
So, Remy, she's a purebred Vizsla, so we got her, like I said, after we went on our pheasant hunt that Heather got me for Christmas. I think that was actually just before COVID, now that I think about it. So I went on that hunt before COVID, and then I shot that turkey and then everything. So we had Remy, we had ordered Remy just after that pheasant hunt because we had some friends on the other side of the state that breed hunting dogs, breed bird dogs, and we're very familiar with them. And they had a litter that was about to be born, and so they asked us if we were interested. And absolutely, we're interested.
Oh, yeah.
So we ended up with Remy, our Vizsla bird dog. So sweet girl, you guys have met her.
Yep.
You met Remy, didn't she come to the?
Yeah, she
No.
came.
She came last year to the Snow Goose.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I've met her.
You haven't met her? No, sweetheart girl. So when we got her registered through the American Kennel Association, and she took a natural ability test and scored. I can't remember exactly. They have a gold, silver, bronze. So she scored in the high silver division. So
Well.
yeah, so we get a nice little plaque and we have her registered. And
Awesome.
super sweetheart. She's a pointer. She's full of energy all the time. So.
Most pointers are.
Most pointers are.
Yeah.
This year, we didn't get her out on birds. I was telling the story earlier to these guys that in Michigan we don't have as many pheasants in the wild. We don't have really many quails down by our area. We got to go all the way up in the UP. And Heather and I are busy in the fall. I officiate, and she coaches cross country and helps out with stuff like that. So we're busy. We have a hard time just packing up and going up to the UP in a weekend because it's quite a drive. It's a 3-4 hour drive, and then having to get home for work on Monday. But so we weren't able to get her. So we try to find preserves around our area, and we got one that we use, the one that our trainer that trained Remy always used when she lived in our area. We gave them a call. They said, when do you guys want to come out? So Heather and I were looking at our calendars, called them right back, and by that time they had already sold out of hunts, so we weren't able to get her out. So one thing that we do is just get her outside and just keep training her. Just make sure she's sharp when we can get her back out in the woods.
Always,
so.
Yep. That's always what you do. You gotta kind of keep the dog sharp.
Yep.
All right. Now, I got to hear more about this story that I've heard about a little bit in text messages.
What's that?
Tell us a story about these chuckers that kept getting loose.
The chuckers that kept getting loose, or the pheasants?
I thought Heather might have had some birds running loose in the garage and potentially in the house.
Oh,
and...
those were. Oh, yeah. So, oh boy, like the donkey in the house. Yeah.
Yes, there was a donkey in his house.
Yeah. So anyway, so she got quails. So she wanted to raise some quails and let them. Yeah. So we're gonna let them loose when they got mature enough, and then we're gonna use as a training tool for Remy around our property. We live on 56-acre farm, so we can spread them out throughout the property, and we can work her with that. And so she got them home, and of course our girls are. Anytime you get an animal, you can't raise them to butcher them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like a lot of people get cows, a lot of people get chickens, and as soon as we get an animal, it's a pet automatically. Doesn't matter. We've even talked about getting pigs for 4-H, and so I talked to my oldest Tala, and she said, "Yeah, I want a pig." Yeah, you have to sell it at the fair. No, I'm not gonna sell it. So anyway,
yeah, no pig.
Yeah, no pig. So these quails turned into their pets right away. So Tala and Pipey decided to bring them in the house. And they're mature enough to fly. And so we had quails flying all around in our house and had to catch them and put them back in their box and get them back in the garage.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, how many quails are flying around your house?
There were 20 in the bunch. Yeah.
Oh, no. Can you imagine that?
What did the dog think?
Dogs going nuts. Of course. All of our dogs. We got 3 dogs in the house. All of them are going nuts. It's just mass chaos. Anytime anything goes in the house, it's mass chaos. It was. That's we talk about what's a day in the life of a Selin. It's not it's unpredictable. You don't know what's gonna happen. Or you try to have a plan in place and it never goes the way that we hope. So because something like that happens. So
Can you imagine if our dogs they would just be chasing around, just jumping out off the walls?
Oh, everything would be broken.
They'd be on the counters. I gotta try that one time.
letting quails go.
Letting quails go in the house. I don't think I'll be living at that house if I do that.
Yep. So I was just telling Andy and Harper, your daughter.
Yep.
That we had, because they had a guinea pig out. And I'm like, yeah, we have the 3 dogs in the house, and then we have a rabbit and a hedgehog, and that's all I knew we had in the house. Well, we had an incident around Halloween where we had some trespassers on our property that were doing not so good things. We ended up calling the police, and they ended up going through our house. And so I was walking with them as they were going through our house to make sure our house was safe and secure. Well, they opened up Tala, my oldest, her bedroom, and there's a rabbit and a chinchilla that I had no clue was even in the house. So
She's sneaking animals in through the window.
What the heck is this? I'm going through the house with a police officer, and all of a sudden we're finding new animals.
Oh, jeez.
Speaking of new animals in the house, tell us the story about the donkey.
You guys were a part of that text thread too.
Yeah. Merry Christmas from what's the donkey's name?
Glenn.
Yeah, from from the girls in Glen.
And this was after that police. So the police thing happened around Halloween, and so the donkey in the house happened a month after that. So all I can imagine is, oh my gosh, there's even more animals in the house. And so what the heck? And we had just remodeled our living room with new floors too. So Heather brought the donkey in the house to do a Christmas picture with her and the kids on the donkey, and thought it would be funny, and it was. I mean, in my mind, I kept thinking, oh, more surprises, more animals in the house. So, so there's a donkey in our house.
So I'm guessing Glenn didn't get to stay.
Glenn did not get to stay. No, he didn't. I thought he was going to, and I was going to have to find a new place, but I thought he was going to take over my bed and my everything else. But no, he didn't get to stay in, and I got my house back. And so.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep.
Sounds like life's always an adventure.
Always an adventure.
Always an adventure. Yep.
That's for sure.
So hunting pheasants today, we first met, the 3 of us, at Tim's. Yep. And that was a free range wild bird hunt. How would you, and especially you, Drew, because you guide at the preserve we were at today.
Yep.
How would you describe to somebody, a novice, somebody who has never done it, what's the difference between hunting free birds versus on a preserve?
So I think we had a little bit of a taste of it today. We have a ton of snow cover here right now still. So there is, some snow or some cover for them to hide in, some corn standing, but it's not very thick, not very tall. And so the birds that were there, that have been around, that have been hunted a few times, they know the drill. They hear you coming, they hear the dogs coming. Same thing with wild birds, right? Versus, those game farm birds that are raised in a pen, don't have that experience of, staying away from predators, staying away from people.
Yeah.
And a lot of those game farm birds are put out anywhere from, an hour to sometimes as little as 10 to 15 minutes before you hunt the field.
Yep.
And they are sometimes still a little, a little overwhelmed, a little, I don't know what the term to use. They have their wits about them. They're still perfectly healthy, but they're still getting acclimated to being outside of the pen for the first time and being in the field. And, a lot of times they don't really know what to do. And so their response is to just sit tight. Whereas a wild bird is going to take off running. And, we had that experience today where we'd see birds and be like, oh, let's go try and flush those out. And
They take off on us.
yeah, they knew enough to stay 60 to 80 yards ahead of us the whole time, running away, and never got a chance. They never flew. They never anything. And, I think hunting wild birds is a lot like that. Those birds, after the first week of the season, have seen it. And, especially their second year around, they've seen it. They know what hunting is, and they know, even more specifically, even when there's not hunters, they know what coyotes are. They know what things chasing them are, and they know how to stay away and stay
alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so those wild birds they've got a lot more fight, a lot more will to live than a pen raised bird.
They're more experienced.
Exactly.
You talk about being acclimated. I mean, we saw that today. Like you said, there were some that, we got right up on and were able to flush, and there are others, like you said, that would take off just because they weren't the birds that were put out there a short time ago. They've probably been out there for a while, right? And so they were able to adjust and get acclimated to the environment, and those natural instincts start to kick in, and so
yeah. And it's interesting too with pen raised birds, specifically at the preserve we were at today. They have what are called high pens, so the birds can fly. They fly really well, and sometimes depending on the weather and depending on the conditions, and it changes throughout the day. But sometimes they sit really tight to the point where, unless you or the dog step on them or come up on them, they're not moving. And they're very, very good at hiding. A hen pheasant in a cornfield or in a sorghum field, you
can be on top of it.
You can miss it.
Yep.
They blend right in.
right.
And so there's days where you got to slow way down, even with pen raised birds, or you'll walk right past all of them.
Right.
And then there's other days where nothing you can do is the right thing. They're up moving, they're running, they're running between you and out, and the dogs don't see them, and you never get a chance at them.
Now, I know there are people out there probably listening and thinking, okay, you guys are talking about hunting on a preserve. Of course you're going to see birds. So you're gonna harvest what you see.
No, not exactly. Not exactly.
So describe the challenge. What? So you have a person saying, of course you're on a preserve. You're going to see birds. You're going to shoot them. How would you describe to some? How would you describe that? What's the challenge on a preserve? To me, looking at when we were out at Tim's, once we flushed the bird, it's all the same. I mean, how many birds did we miss today that ended up over in the neighbors, and now they're wild birds?
Yep.
Right.
It's just that they were raised in a pen, and in our area, in Michigan, for example, I've already mentioned this, we don't have pheasants in our area anymore. So there are a lot more preserves that are popping up to give people opportunities to be able to harvest chuckers, to be able to harvest pheasants, to be able to harvest quails and that sort of thing. But in the end, you're hunting a wild animal. They get acclimated. It's still just as challenging. You miss them, now they're a wild bird. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Not that they weren't before, but
I think it really depends on the actual preserve itself too.
I agree with you.
Based on the way that they operate, based on their business model, their business strategy. There are, not to put any bad names on anybody, because it's a business and these guys are trying to make their money. But there are preserves that write down and keep track of the number of birds that are shot, and if the next group comes and the first group didn't shoot all of their birds, they're counting some of those leftover birds as part of what they're putting out. And so you're hunting scratch birds. And then there's other places where they don't monitor that as much, and they don't allow scratch hunting. And so they're building up this, I don't want to call it a wild population, but I mean, those birds are acclimated, right? Like we saw today.
Yep.
The place we're at, Keith, the owner, does a really good job of
Agreed. Yes.
maintaining a high number of birds around the property that aren't newly planted, right?
Yeah.
So you'll go out there and, some places use what they call like a catch pen or like a recatch pen, where it's more or less a funnel going back into the pen so that the birds that were released that end up back at the holding pen can go back in. Keith doesn't have that. It's closed off. And so once those birds are out, and, they're out for a long time. The other thing too is, with weather, unfortunate things happen. This year, I know he had a pen blow over in the middle of one of our snowstorms that we had where we got 11 inches of snow.
Right.
And, in one day he had 250 birds get out.
It's a lot of birds.
It's a lot of birds. Yeah.
Yep. And,
From a business standpoint, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
It is. And, the nice thing about, working, and that's it, right? Go check out your farm. But the nice thing about working with a good game preserve is knowing that even though he had 250 birds get out, if you call him and say, I want to have 6 birds in my field, he's still putting 6 birds in your field. Right? You're going to see a lot more than that because there's now 250 birds on this 400 acre piece that are out walking around, flying around. And so, just do some research, talk to your people that you're going to see. There's a ton of really awesome, like really good preserves around the country. There are a lot of people that, are really above board, do a really great job. There are some people that it's still doing a great job. It's a little bit more of a business.
For sure.
So, feel it out. Don't be afraid to go to multiple preserves if you have that opportunity near you. And
right. I think I've been to a handful of them, just in the state here. I mean, I know with you to one down south, right?
Yep.
And then I've been out one western Minnesota, and then the one in western Minnesota, they only hunt roosters because of the county ordinance. They won't let you let them shoot hen pheasants. So
Yep. And some of that has to do with the license too, because if they don't have that, if they don't have the hunting preserve license, then you're limited to your natural bird limit, which in Minnesota is either 2 or 3 a day. And so then you're hunting roosters, but they're planted, but you're still only allowed your limit.
Yeah. So, and the reason why I bring that up is when people hear the word preserve, they think game ranch. This is a game ranch, an enclosed game ranch. Nope, it's not. They automatically, there's that stereotype out there that when you hear preserve, you're thinking that you have these high fences and the animals are stuck within those perimeters within that confine. That's not how this works. And any bird preserve I've been to, there's no high fences. As soon as they put them in the field, they're as wild as any other bird, especially once they get acclimated. Like you pointed out, when they first put them out there, it takes them a little bit to get acclimated. But once they get acclimated, it's just like going, like you said, to Colorado, going to Iowa, going to North Dakota and hunting these birds in the wild. Same exact thing. It's just as challenging. So,
Yeah. And, man, I don't know. I hope I don't make some enemies with this one, but South Dakota is really known for its pheasant hunting, right?
Yep.
People pay a lot of money to go out there and go pheasant hunting.
Yep.
And
you're gonna say it, aren't you?
I'm unfortunately gonna reveal the secret, but a lot of times, and I'm not mentioning any names or any places but there are people who offer wild bird hunts, and you go out there and those are pen raised birds. And they were, put out as early as that morning or potentially the night before. They go out and they plant the field that you're going to hunt the next day. Gotcha. It's the reason that people see so many birds in South Dakota. It's also the reason that South Dakota has such a big wild bird population is because of all of the pen raised birds. Whether people are just pen raising them to release them to help the population, right? Or whether they're put out as part of a hunting operation. So it's definitely good for conservation. It's good for the wild bird population.
For sure.
Same thing here with the preserve that we were at today, right? The bird population around where we were hunting is really high for that area.
100%.
For central Minnesota, for that specific area that we were hunting, the wild bird population is really high because these birds get loose. When you're hunting them, they fly to the neighboring properties. They escape, for lack of a better term, and help build the wild population.
And it's great.
Yep.
It's great.
Yep. I remember when I was a kid, my uncle raised pheasants. He didn't hunt them.
Mm-hmm.
He banded all of them. So that way, when people shot him, the local people knew that he was raising them, and they'd come talk to him and say, "Hey, I shot one of your birds today." But, driving down the gravel road, if one ran out and was out picking grit on the side of the road, you could tell just from looking at it if it was one that he had raised. And, people do that just to help the wild population, because at that time there wasn't a lot of pheasants, especially now where we hunt. But now this year I went out and, in that CRP grass that we planted, we had, I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was 23 or 24.
And that's pretty good for that area of Minnesota.
And we only hunted the CRP grass. We didn't even hunt any of the pasture land. So
there could have been more.
There was a ton more. We only saw one rooster, and the rest were all hens.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because that one rooster can make all those hens happy.
Well, and I know the roosters are around because opening morning of deer season, I was sitting in my deer blind and look out, and there's a tree 100 yards away from me. And I watched one rooster fly and land in the tree, and then another, and then another. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, this can't be real. And I'm like pulling out my binoculars and staring at it. And I'm texting my cousin, and he can see him from his stand too. And we're just sitting there watching him. And the next thing you know, there's 17 roosters in one tree.
Really?
I've got a picture on my phone. We'll make sure we post it on the Fall Obsession page.
Yeah.
But yeah, 17 roosters in one tree. I've never seen it before. I've seen roosters in a tree,
right?
But not one at a time.
Right. Not 17 of
Not
one
17
tree.
in one tree. And so I don't know if there was a coyote or if there was something running them around, flushing them up into this tree or what. But that morning they were all there, and I swear they know what time it is.
Yeah.
100%.
Because 8:59.
They're back in.
They were gone. So 9 o'clock is when you can shoot pheasants in Minnesota, and at 8:59, I swear they were all out of the tree, gone.
They all have watches on. I know.
Yeah.
They do. Like on their feet.
I'm gonna go hide in the gross thick stuff that these guys aren't gonna hunt.
I was just amazed by all the pheasants that we saw driving out to the preserve today. We saw a lot of pheasants just running around.
Yeah, coming from my house, going up kind of the back way to 94 there. So half dozen pheasants on the side of the road. So
we don't, like I said, we don't see that anymore. Andy was asking me, when do you guys get pheasants in Michigan? I said, Heather and I started dating about 20 years ago, and when we first started dating, her grandma lived on the property that we live on now, and so grandma invited me to come hunt there. And so back then, when I would walk out to my blind, I would kick pheasants out all over the place. I mean, there were times that pheasants would scoot out in the cornfield and then try to stalk up on them and try to get a shot with my arrow. But since that time, we haven't seen. In fact, the last pheasant I saw, we built our house. Heather and I, Grandma passed away, and Heather and I took over the property, and we built a house in 2007. We moved in, and then it was that small game season. It was that bird season. I walk out, so we weren't even in the house a year. I walk on the porch. There's a pheasant in our front yard, and so I go running in. Heather, there's a pheasant. Should I shoot it? She's like, if you want. So I went and I shot that one, and that was the first pheasant I had ever shot. And that was also the last pheasant I've seen in Michigan.
You shot the last pheasant in Michigan?
Well, then we bought some of them. We tried to raise some because we wanted to reintroduce them back into the environment, but that didn't work out either, because one thing that we realized that raising pheasants is just simply how hard it is to keep them alive. They are just really aggressive animals, and they don't like each other. I mean, they really don't like each other at certain times of the year, and it's
Well, that's funny.
Yep. So.
Yep.
My old man Earth could have put a bunch of pheasants in his garage too, raised them up there, and it pooped all over his car, and then that was the end of that. If you know him, you understand that.
I like that he just let him free range in the garage.
I know, right?
Yeah.
With the car still in there.
It's like quails in the house.
It's like quails in the house.
The people that still live in there.
People across across the country going, these Midwestern guys are kind of goofy.
Donkeys, quails, chinchillas, hedgehogs, everybody in their house. It's like a circus in our house.
Oh my God.
That's what keeps life entertaining, though.
Every day's a new story.
Every day. Yep. So,
Well, you guys have any last thoughts for today?
It was a great day. It was awesome. It was fun to hang out with everybody, hang you guys out, and do a little pheasant hunting. So yeah, we don't get to do this very often, especially I haven't seen you for quite a while. So
Yep. Yeah.
and we live close enough to each other. We probably should, but yeah.
Life happens.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, busy working. He's working, so yeah.
but I'm glad we were able to pull this off. Like I said, originally we had planned. Well, I told Drew when we went on the bow fishing trip back in July. Was it July? Hey, I'm coming up to visit you guys this year. I go, Christmas break. What are you guys doing Christmas break? So we ended up getting it all set up, and Mother Nature didn't allow us to do that. So Mother Nature and the airline industry.
Well,
when they
yeah.
canceled my flight when I got a flight later in the week. But we were able to work it out this time, and it was a blast. It was so much fun. I'm glad I was able to come out and so see you guys here.
I know.
Yep.
Tomorrow we'll do a little ice fishing, so take them on the ice.
Are you?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's another thing. Michigan, we don't even have ice this year. We don't have ice. We had one weekend where we had enough ice where you could get out there, but by the end of that weekend, it was open water again. So you still had some shanties out there, and some of the parts that were still frozen, but you had shanties and people ice fishing in open water. So I got a neighbor who's an avid ice fisherman was telling me that he went out that weekend. He only hunted Friday, Saturday, but by Sunday, again, he had the open water. And again, we got open water again now. And so he's like, yeah, I'm probably done ice fishing this year. We'll pull the boat out here in a few weeks and just start using our boats.
I took him past Waconia.
Yeah.
I go, look at that. The village, the big villages on Waconia there.
Yeah.
But a lot of the houses were gone. You could see the piles.
Yep.
They have to be out by the end of the month.
Yep. I saw the county sheriff is actually urging people to get their house off of the local lakes here because
Of the next snow.
of the ice conditions. So even though typically at this time of the year it would be totally safe to drive on.
100%. We did 20 inches.
Yeah. This year, because of all of the snow, it insulated and the ice didn't freeze well. And, there's stories of snowmobiles going through the ice already, which is...
It shouldn't happen yet.
Shouldn't happen yet. It's scary to hear about. And so they're urging people to get their houses off. And you can see people are, heeding that advice. There's not a ton of houses left out there.
Nope.
But all the trucks that were on the ice today that we saw, like full-size F-150s.
Oh, yeah.
Right out in the middle of the lake on the ice.
Dual axle ice houses. And
Yeah, it happens.
It does. I got a buddy that has a dual axle ice house and a dually, and just full size dually on that thing, and just the amount of weight that thing goes across the ice. I'm like, you got to have 20 something just to feel safe.
Yeah, for sure. Ice road truckers.
Right. Yep.
Well, good luck ice fishing.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to have another podcast and have you tell us how that went.
Yep. So I've obviously ice fished before, but not for. I mean, in Michigan, it's a lot of panfish type of stuff, or pike.
That's basically what we do too,
Yeah.
especially down this side, the south. I mean, if you go up more north, you can, get more walleyes and stuff like that.
Oh, gotcha.
And if you go really up north, you get into Lakers.
Ooh.
My son went up to Grand Rapids area.
Yeah.
He got Lakers last weekend.
Mason, you're living the life.
Seriously. I gave him a bad addiction.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's the best one. So,
Yeah. Well, should probably wrap it up for today.
sounds good.
Yep.
All right. As always, our podcast is brought to you by Ridge Rock Hunt Club. Check us out on Carbon TV, Waypoint TV, Go Wild, obviously Facebook, Instagram, and we're now on TikTok.
Yeah.
I know. I saw that. I was flipping through. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Well, it was one part of Sam's instruction. Hey, make sure you get some vertical footage today so we can do some reels and TikToks and stuff with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, thanks again to, like I'd mentioned, Ridge Rock and Go Wild and Carbon TV and
YouTube
Waypoint
team.
TV. And yeah, if you haven't already, go follow us and subscribe on those channels. And other than that, we will see you guys next week.
Absolutely. Stay obsessed.
Stay obsessed. Hopefully we do well in Missouri. So.
Yep.
Yep.